My beloved child, listen carefully, because this is not a gentle whisper from heaven. This is a thunderous warning, and it is being released at a very precise moment. On January 7th, Archangel Michael is speaking in anger today, not out of hatred, but out of urgency. Heaven has noticed something you did, something you said, or something you chose to ignore. And this message has found you because walking away now would carry consequences heavier than you realize. You may already feel it in your spirit, that tightening in your chest, that sudden stillness around you. This is not coincidence. This is not algorithm. This is divine interruption. Archangel Michael is stepping forward with his sword lowered but his voice raised. He is not here to destroy you, but he is not here to comfort you either. He is here to confront you with truth. There was a moment recently where you knew what was right and you chose differently. It may seem small in your human eyes, but heaven weighs decisions differently. What you brushed off as just one time was recorded. What you justified as "I had no choice" was examined. And what you told yourself would have no spiritual impact has already shifted something in the unseen realm. Archangel Michael says, I warned you before, quietly. You felt it as hesitation. You felt it as discomfort. You felt it as that inner voice telling you to pause. But you overrode it. And today, his voice is no longer quiet. You not misunderstand this anger. This is not rage without love. This is the anger of a guardian who sees danger approaching someone he was assigned to protect. Michael stands at the gates of obedience, and you stepped outside the boundary thinking grace would immediately cover it. Grace is real, but grace is not permission to ignore divine instruction. Heaven noticed because your life is not ordinary. The mistake you made was not random because your calling is not small. You are not judged like everyone else because you are not assigned like everyone else. And this is why the correction feels heavier. Archangel Michael says, you were given clarity, and you chose convenience. Let that sink in. You knew the truth. You sensed the nudge. You saw the red flag. Yet you moved forward anyway, hoping it would somehow work out. That hope was not faith, it was avoidance. And now, the warning is sharp because time is tight. January 7th is not just a date. It is a checkpoint, a line in the sand. A moment where heaven says, decide. Decide if you will realign or continue drifting. Decide if you will humble yourself or defend yourself. Decide if you will listen now or learn later through consequences. Archangel Michael is not threatening you. He is alerting you. There is a difference. He says, if you walk away from this message, it will not be forgiven lightly. That does not mean you are beyond mercy. It means the correction will escalate. Heaven always speaks softly first. When softness is ignored, clarity becomes sharp. Right now, something is being withheld, not as punishment but as protection. A door has paused mid-opening. A blessing has slowed. You may have felt delays, resistance, or sudden obstacles where things once flowed easily. That is not the enemy. That is heaven saying, stop. Look. Return. Do not let pride blind you here. Pride whispers, this message is for someone else. Pride says, I'm already spiritual. Pride says, God understands. Yes, God understands. And that is exactly why this warning is coming now. Archangel Michael says, I am standing between you and what would have harmed you if you continued. The mistake you made opened a door you were not meant to open. It aligned you briefly with something that does not serve your destiny. And if left unchecked, it would cost you peace first, then clarity, then authority. But hear this carefully. This message is also proof of protection. If heaven wanted to let you fall, you would not be hearing this. If you were abandoned, there would be silence. Instead, there is confrontation because you are still claimed. Right now, the question is not what you did. The question is what you will do next. Will you justify it or will you repent? Will you scroll away or will you stay and receive correction? Will you harden your heart or will you allow it to be reset? Archangel Michael is waiting for your response. Not tomorrow, not later. Now, this is the moment where destiny pivots. And what happens next depends entirely on whether you choose humility over ego, obedience over comfort, and truth over denial. The message has begun. My dear one, take a breath and stay with this moment, because Archangel Michael is not finished speaking. What you are feeling right now, that mix of unease, awareness, and sudden clarity, is not condemnation. It is exposure. Heaven exposes before it corrects, and corrects before it restores. This is the order, and you are standing right in the middle of it. Archangel Michael says the reason this message feels heavy is because you have been avoiding stillness. You have stayed busy, distracted, mentally loud, so you would not have to sit with the truth. But today, heaven has slowed everything down just enough for this message to reach you. That mistake you made did not come from rebellion alone. It came from exhaustion. You were tired of waiting, tired of trusting, tired of doing the right thing while watching others seem to get ahead by doing the wrong thing. And that is where the danger entered. Michael says, you compared what I was doing in you with what I was doing in others. Comparison weakened your discernment. It made disobedience look justified. It made shortcuts look reasonable. It made silence feel safer than obedience. And in that vulnerable moment, you stepped slightly out of alignment. Heaven noticed not because it wants to punish you, but because that small shift would have led to a much larger compromise later. What you see as a single mistake was actually the first domino. And this is why the interruption came so fast. Archangel Michael wants you to understand something clearly. The anger you sense is not directed at you. It is directed at the outcome that would have followed if you kept going. Heaven is angry at the threat, not the child. But correction must feel serious, or it will not be respected. You may be wondering why now? Why January 7th? Because this is the season where decisions become doors. The next few weeks carry unusual spiritual weight. Choices made now echo longer than usual. And heaven could not allow you to carry unresolved disobedience into a season that requires clean hands and a clear heart. Michael says, you cannot carry old compromises into new assignments. They will not survive the pressure. They will collapse under responsibility. And you were being prepared for more than you realized. That is why things may have felt tense recently. Conversations felt off. Sleep felt disrupted. Peace felt conditional. These were warning lights, not attacks. Signals, not sabotage. But instead of slowing down, you pushed through. Still, heaven did not withdraw. Heaven leaned in. Right now, Archangel Michael is asking you for one thing: honesty. Not performance. Not promises you cannot keep. Just honesty. Admit where you knew better. Admit where fear influenced your choice. Admit where you delayed obedience hoping God would adjust His will to your comfort. This is not about shame. Shame hides. Conviction heals. And hear this carefully. The moment you acknowledge the mistake without defending it, something shifts immediately. The hold it has on you weakens. The authority it stole begins to return. Heaven responds quickly to genuine humility. Michael says, Correction accepted early prevents discipline later. This message is mercy disguised as severity. Now listen closely, because this part matters deeply. You are not alone in this moment. Thousands are hearing variations of this message, but only some will respond. And response is what separates warning from transformation. Staying present right now is already an act of obedience. If this message is reaching you, do not keep it to yourself. When divine warnings are shared, they multiply protection. This is one of those moments where engaging with this message is not about algorithms, it is about alignment. When you like this message, you are saying, I acknowledge the correction. When you comment, you are making a public agreement with truth. When you share it, you become a watchman for someone else who is on the edge of the same mistake. And if you have not yet subscribed, understand this. Staying connected to messages like this keeps your spiritual senses sharp. This channel is not entertainment. It is instruction. It is guidance for those who feel called, but often misunderstood. Joining this space is a way of saying, I choose awareness over ignorance. Archangel Michael says there is someone close to you who almost made the same error you did. Your obedience now creates covering for them. Your humility becomes their warning. Never underestimate how your response affects others. Before this moment passes, one more thing. Pause and reflect honestly. Not for hours. Yes, for a few seconds. Ask yourself where you felt resistance while listening. That is the area heaven is touching. That is where healing begins. And hold on, because what is about to be revealed next explains why this mistake was noticed so quickly, and why heaven moved faster than usual in your case. Once you understand that, everything will finally make sense. My precious one, what Archangel Michael is revealing now may feel intense, but it is meant to unlock understanding, not fear. The reason heaven reacted so quickly to your mistake is because you were standing closer to a breakthrough than you realized. Proximity to blessing increases sensitivity to error. The higher the calling, the tighter the correction. This is not because God is harsh with you, but because He trusts you with more. Archangel Michael says there was a spiritual acceleration around you. Things were lining up, quietly. Conversations, delays, even disappointments were repositioning you. And just before momentum was about to shift in your favor, the mistake occurred. Not enough to destroy your destiny, but enough to slow it. Unless it was addressed immediately. That is why this message feels urgent. Heaven does not interrupt casually. It intervenes only when something precious is at stake. What you stepped into was not meant to define you, but it did threaten to distract you. The danger was not the action itself. It was what it would have normalized in your spirit if left unchecked. Archangel Michael says, you almost learned to tolerate what you were once warned about. Intolerance is the quiet enemy of calling. It creeps in slowly. It softens boundaries. It convinces you that spiritual erosion is maturity. But heaven calls it drift. You may have told yourself, this isn't that serious. But heaven saw the trajectory. One compromise leads to another. One silence becomes a habit. One delay in obedience creates room for confusion. And confusion is expensive when your assignment requires clarity. This is why forgiveness is tied to response right now. Forgiveness is not withheld, but it is activated through repentance. Walking away from this message would not make you unforgiven. It would make you unchanged. And unchanged patterns repeat themselves. Michael says, correction ignored becomes correction repeated. Heaven does not want to revisit this lesson later under harsher circumstances. There is something else you must understand. The enemy noticed your calling long before you did. The mistake you made was not random temptation. It was targeted distraction. It arrived when you were tired, emotionally worn, and craving relief. That is when spiritual guards must stand strongest. And this time, Archangel Michael stepped in personally. He says, I blocked what you could not yet see. You may never know how close you came to unnecessary loss. Some consequences are invisible until they are irreversible. This warning closed a door quietly before damage could spread. Now comes the most important part. Restoration begins the moment you choose alignment over explanation. You do not need to overanalyze. You do not need to punish yourself. You do not need to prove anything to God. You only need to return. Return in your thoughts. Return in your choices. Return in your obedience. Heaven is not asking for perfection. It is asking for responsiveness. Archangel Michael says there is authority returning to you even now. The heaviness you felt at the beginning of this message is already lifting for those who are receiving it with humility. That is the sign that correction is doing its work. And hear this clearly. The anger has served its purpose. It got your attention. What remains now is protection, guidance, and renewed alignment. Michael is not standing over you with judgment. He is standing beside you as a guardian again. But this moment must be marked. Moments of correction that are not marked are often forgotten. Heaven invites you to respond outwardly to seal what has happened inwardly. That is why acknowledgement matters. That is why agreement matters. That is why your response carries spiritual weight. If this message has pierced your spirit, do not let it pass silently. Type I return to alignment in the comments if you receive this correction and choose obedience over pride. Lesson code 944 has just been released. This is the moment where obedience becomes action, not just understanding. As Archangel Michael corrects and protects, this message must reach others who are standing at the same dangerous crossroads. When you give through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are sowing light into lives that are one warning away from collapse. I hear the Lord saying, as you release seed, I release covering, and this word becomes living fire in the hands of those who need it. This message is not free in the spirit. It is paid for through obedience. If your heart is burning right now, this is your invitation to act. Do not delay what heaven is prompting. Support this mission now, and let your giving become a prophetic response that opens heavens over your life. Beloved soul, now that correction has been released and alignment has begun, Archangel Michael speaks with clarity instead of confrontation. The atmosphere has shifted. What felt heavy before now feels sharp, wake, and precise. This is the sound of order returning. This is what happens when heaven sees a heart that does not run from truth. Archangel Michael says the greatest danger has passed, but the lesson must remain. A mistake you made is no longer the issue. What matters now is what it taught you about yourself. It revealed where you were vulnerable, where you were tired, and where you needed reinforcement. Heaven does not waste moments like these. Every exposure becomes instruction. There is a refining happening in you right now. Not the kind that burns everything down, but the kind that removes excess weight. You are being taught discernment at a higher level. Before, you reacted to situations emotionally. Now, you are being trained to pause spiritually. That pause is power. That pause is protection. Archangel Michael says, you are learning the difference between pressure and permission. Just because something pushes you does not mean it is allowed. Just because something feels urgent does not mean it is ordained. This mistake taught you to slow your yes and strengthen your no. You may notice that your tolerance for certain environments, conversations, or influences is decreasing. Things that once felt normal now feel draining. This is not judgment. This is elevation. When heaven upgrades your assignment, it also upgrades your sensitivity. You can no longer blend in where you are meant to stand out. Michael says there are adjustments coming in how you steward your time. You will feel less patience for distractions that steal focus. Idle scrolling, empty conversations, unnecessary obligations, these will begin to irritate your spirit. That irritation is not restlessness. It is alignment calling you higher. Pay attention to what no longer fits. Heaven is speaking through discomfort. There is also healing happening beneath the surface. The mistake you made was connected to a deeper wound. The fear of missing out. The fear of falling behind. The fear that obedience might cost you something good. That fear is being uprooted now. Heaven is replacing it with trust that does not need constant reassurance. Archangel Michael says, what is meant for you cannot be stolen by waiting. Let that settle into your spirit. You do not lose by obeying. You only lose by rushing. The enemy thrives on urgency without wisdom. Heaven moves in timing with peace. You are also being restored in confidence. Not loud confidence. Not defensive confidence. But quiet certainty. The kind that does not need validation. The kind that knows when to speak and when to stay silent. This is the confidence required for the next season you are entering. Do not be surprised if certain people begin to pull away. Alignment always causes separation. Some connections were only comfortable when you were unsure. As clarity returns, compatibility shifts. This is not loss, it is release. Archangel Michael says there is a window opening soon where your obedience will be tested again, but this time it will feel easier. Not because the choice is smaller, but because you are stronger. What once confused you will now be obvious. What once tempted you will now feel empty. This is growth. And understand this clearly. Heaven is not watching you suspiciously now. Heaven is watching you proudly. Correction has been accepted. Instruction has been received. Authority is being restored. There is something you must guard carefully from this point forward: spiritual momentum. Momentum is fragile when it is new. Protect it with prayer, with awareness, and with boundaries. Do not rush to explain this season to others. Let fruit speak later. Archangel Michael says, move quietly until strength returns fully. You do not need to announce transformation. You need to live it. The next steps will not come all at once. They will come one instruction at a time. Follow each one without demanding the full picture. Obedience unlocks clarity progressively. If you feel a renewed desire to seek God more deeply, that is not emotional residue from this message. That is alignment activating hunger. Feed it. Make space for it. Honor it. And remember this: you are not defined by the mistake you made, but by the humility with which you responded to correction. That humility has repositioned you. Stay present. Stay aware. Stay obedient. Because what heaven is preparing next will require the very discernment you just gained. My beloved one, Archangel Michael now draws your attention to what lies ahead, because correction is never the end of the conversation. It is the doorway into preparation. What you just walked through was not meant to weaken you, it was meant to sharpen you. And now, heaven is adjusting your posture for what is coming next. There is a shift happening in how you perceive responsibility. Before, responsibility felt heavy, like something that demanded more than you had to give. But now, responsibility is being reframed as trust. Heaven does not place weight on those it does not believe can carry it. The reason pressure felt intense in the past is because you were carrying it without full clarity. Clarity lightens the load. Archangel Michael says you are entering a phase where spiritual maturity will be required more than emotional reaction. Situations will arise that look familiar, but your response must be different. The test will not be in what happens. It will be in how quickly you recognize what is truly being asked of you. Do not expect dramatic signs. This season will be subtle, deliberate, and quiet. The temptation will be to underestimate it. But small moments now carry large consequences later. A conversation you choose to exit. A thought you choose not to entertain. A boundary you choose to reinforce. These are the victories heaven is watching for. Michael says, you are being trained to govern yourself. This is the mark of readiness. When discipline no longer has to come from outside, authority can be trusted on the inside. Self-governance is proof of alignment. You may notice that your intuition feels stronger, but also more demanding. It will no longer allow you to ignore what you sense. That is because your discernment is being recalibrated. What once whispered will now insist. This is not pressure, it is partnership. There is also a refinement happening in your speech. Words matter more now. Casual agreements, half-hearted promises, and emotional declarations will begin to feel uncomfortable. Heaven is teaching you to speak with intention. Silence will often be wiser than explanation. Listen before responding. Observe before committing. Archangel Michael says this is how spiritual authority stabilizes, through restraint. You are also being asked to release an old version of yourself that survived by adapting instead of discerning. Adaptation kept you safe in earlier seasons, but it will limit you now. Discernment requires courage. It requires you to stand still when others rush. It requires you to say no when yes would be easier. This is the strength you are learning. Do not confuse this with isolation. You are not being pulled away from people, you are being repositioned among them. Your role is changing. Your influence is becoming quieter but deeper. Those who need constant validation will drift away. Those who value truth will draw closer. Michael says, you are not losing connection. You are gaining clarity. Let go without resentment. Release without explanation. Trust that what aligns will remain. There may be moments where you feel a strange mix of peace and alertness. Calm but watchful. Rested but attentive. This is not anxiety. This is readiness. Soldiers at rest still keep their armor close. You are learning when to relax and when to stand guard. Heaven is also restoring your ability to wait without frustration. Waiting will no longer feel like delay. It will feel like positioning. You will sense when action is premature and when it is appointed. This discernment will protect you from unnecessary battles. Archangel Michael says you will soon recognize how often you were saved by pauses you did not understand at the time. What felt like slowdowns were shields. What felt like denial was direction. And now hear this carefully. There will be opportunities presented that look like shortcuts to what you desire. It will seem harmless. They will even appear efficient. But they will bypass the process that gives you stability. Do not take them. Anything that requires you to compromise clarity for speed is not from heaven. You are being trained to value longevity over immediacy. What God is building through you is meant to last. It must be rooted, not rushed. As you move forward, keep this principle close. Peace is not the absence of challenge, but the presence of alignment. If something demands urgency but steals peace, pause. If something requires patience but increases clarity, proceed. Archangel Michael is not stepping back. He's standing watch as you grow into discernment that does not need constant correction. This is progress. Stay steady. Stay aware. Stay obedient, because the next unfolding will require the strength you are quietly developing now. My dear child, Archangel Michael now shifts the tone again, not because the urgency has faded, but because you are ready to hear instruction without resistance. This is the phase where heaven stops correcting and starts entrusting. You are no longer being pulled back from danger. You are being guided forward with awareness. This is a different kind of attention, and it carries responsibility. Archangel Michael says you are entering a season where your reactions matter more than your intentions. In earlier times, heaven weighed your heart heavily. Now, heaven is watching your follow-through. What you do after understanding is more important than what you feel while listening. Knowledge without movement becomes delay, and delay weakens momentum. There will be moments ahead where you feel tempted to over-explain yourself. Resist that urge. Over-explanation is often rooted in insecurity, not clarity. When you are aligned, your decisions do not need defending. Peace will confirm what words cannot. Silence will protect what arguments would expose. Michael says, let your boundaries speak before your emotions do. You are learning to choose restraint over reaction. This is not suppression. It is mastery. Emotional discipline is spiritual authority in practice. You may notice that certain patterns try to resurface. Old habits of thought, familiar doubts, familiar fears. Do not panic when they appear. Their presence does not mean failure. It means they are losing power. Old patterns always attempt one final return before they dissolve. What matters is that you do not entertain them. Archangel Michael says, you are not required to fight what no longer has permission. Awareness alone is enough now. Recognition breaks repetition. Heaven is also refining how you discern voices. Not every opportunity is an invitation. Not every open door is yours to walk through. Some doors are open to test whether you will ask before entering. This is where many lose alignment, not through rebellion, but through assumption. Ask before acting. Pause before agreeing. Pray before committing. You are also being trained to recognize spiritual fatigue. Fatigue makes compromise look logical. It makes rest feel optional. But heaven is reminding you that rest is not a reward. It is a requirement. Protecting your strength is part of obedience. Exhaustion is not proof of dedication. Archangel Michael says there is no honor in burning out when you were called to endure. As you continue walking in this awareness, do not isolate yourself spiritually. Messages like this are not meant to be consumed silently. They are meant to be acknowledged, shared, and reinforced. When you engage, you anchor the lesson deeper. When you speak agreement, you strengthen alignment. If this message is resonating, let it be known. Leave a comment as a marker of response. Share this with someone who hath been wrestling with confusion or quiet compromise. And if you are not already connected here, subscribe and stay close. These messages come as warnings, confirmations, and guidance, often right on time. Your engagement is not about numbers. It is about agreement. When you participate, you are saying, I choose awareness. And that choice carries weight in the spirit. Archangel Michael says there are others watching you who will follow your lead, even if you do not realize it. Your obedience is louder than your words. Your discipline is teaching someone else how to stand. And before you drift away from this moment, hold on, because what is about to be revealed next will show you how heaven restores what was delayed, not slowly, but strategically. This next revelation brings clarity to why patience is about to be rewarded in an unexpected way. Do not rush past this season. Let it finish its work. Growth that is rushed often has to be repeated. Growth that is honored becomes permanent. Michael is still standing guard, not with anger now, but with approval. Stay aligned. Stay responsive. Stay steady, because the ground ahead is different, and you are finally prepared to walk on it. My beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks from a place of assurance, because the internal shift hath been completed. What was once unstable has settled. What was once conflicted has clarified. You may not see dramatic changes around you yet, but within you, order has been restored. And heaven always works from the inside outward. Michael says this is the stage where trust is tested quietly, not through obvious temptation, but through waiting. You will notice that things are not rushing forward, yet they are no longer blocked. This pause is intentional, is a strengthening pause. Like a bow pulled back before release, tension here is not resistance, it is preparation. Here is something being rebuilt in your confidence, but it is different from before. Earlier confidence leaned on outcomes. This new confidence leans on alignment. You are learning to be steady even when results are delayed. That steadiness is rare. That steadiness is powerful. Archangel Michael says, you are being taught to stand without reassurance. This does not mean heaven has withdrawn. It means heaven is trusting you to walk without constant confirmation. Faith matures when it no longer demands signs at every step. You may notice fewer emotional highs and lows, less drama internally, more quiet resolve. This is not boredom. This is grounding. Emotional extremes often mask instability. Calm consistency signals growth. Do not mistake silence for absence. Heaven is very active right now, just not noisy. Some of the most important spiritual work happens without announcement. Roots grow in darkness before fruit appears in light. Michael says there is a strengthening of your inner compass. Decisions will come faster, but with less struggle. You will know when something is wrong without needing to explain why. A discernment is a gift refined through obedience. There is also a recalibration happening in how you view success. You are being detached from outcomes that once defined your worth. Approval, recognition, visible progress. These are losing their grip on you. In their place, there is a desire to be right, not just rewarded. Archangel Michael says, you are learning to value integrity over impact. Impact without integrity eventually collapses. Heaven builds in the opposite order. You may find yourself pulling back from unnecessary conversations. Not because you are distant, but because you are selective. Energy is currency now. Where you spend it matters. Protecting your peace is no longer optional. It is strategic. There will be moments where old voices try to re-enter your mind. Doubts that sound familiar. Accusations that feel recycled. Do not engage them. They are echoes, not threats. The fact that they sound repetitive is proof they have nothing new to say. Michael says, what no longer evolves no longer rules. Growth silences what stagnation cannot. You are also being prepared for discernment in relationships. Some connections will deepen unexpectedly. Others will naturally fade. Do not force balance where alignment is missing. Allow God to reorder your circle without guilt. Repositioning is not rejection. There is an invitation coming that will require discernment rather than excitement. It will look good, sound good, and feel logical, but you will be asked to sense rather than assume. This is where your training will be tested. Not every good thing is a God thing. Not every opportunity is an assignment. Archangel Michael says, if it requires you to rush alignment, it is not from heaven. Peace may not always feel exciting, but it will always feel steady. As you continue forward, there will be an increase in personal responsibility, less external structure, less hand-holding, more internal guidance. This is not abandonment. This is advancement. You are stepping into a phase where your choices shape your environment more than your environment shapes you. That is authority in its early form. Do not fear mistakes now. Fear ignoring correction. Heaven will still guide, still nudge, still warn. But the volume will match your maturity. Subtle does not mean weak. It means precise. Archangel Michael says there is quiet approval over your obedience. Not loud celebration, but settled satisfaction. Heaven does not rush applause. It waits for consistency. Stay grounded in what you have learned. Do not romanticize the past. Do not rush the future. Be fully present in this season. What you are becoming now determines what you can be trusted with next. The foundation has been repaired. The alignment has been restored. The awareness has been sharpened. And what comes next will not require anger, warning, or correction. It will require readiness. My chosen one, Archangel Michael, now speaks with a firmness that carries promise. This is not the firmness of warning, but the firmness of commissioning. What you have walked through was necessary to bring you here. You are no longer standing at the edge of correction. You are standing at the threshold of responsibility. Heaven does not entrust lightly, and it does not advance those who resist alignment. You have proven willing to listen, willing to adjust, and willing to stay. Michael says this is the moment where many fall into a subtle trap, the temptation to relax too much. Relief can sometimes weaken vigilance. Do not confuse peace with permission to disengage. Peace is meant to sharpen awareness, not dull it. You are calm now because you are aligned, not because the journey is finished. There is an assignment ahead that will not announce itself dramatically. It will begin quietly, almost unnoticed. A thought placed in your heart. A burden that feels gentle but persistent. A sense that something matters more deeply than before. This is how heaven often speaks to those it trusts, not with noise, but with weight. Archangel Michael says, what is coming requires consistency, not intensity. You will not be asked to do everything at once. You will be asked to show up faithfully, day after day, choice after choice, obedience after obedience. This is where long-term authority is built. You may feel an internal separation happening, not isolation but distinction. Your priorities are shifting. What once felt urgent now feels optional. What once felt optional now feels essential. This is heaven recalibrating your focus. Do not fight this shift. It is preparing you to carry something that cannot survive divided attention. Michael says there will be a moment soon when you realize you are no longer reacting the way you used to. Old triggers will lose their grip. Situations that once provoked anxiety will now be met with discernment. This is not emotional numbness. This is emotional maturity. With maturity comes accountability. You will feel more responsible for your choices, your words, and your influence. Even small decisions will feel significant. That is because heaven is enlarging your impact quietly. You are being trusted in ways you may not fully see yet. Archangel Michael also warns you not to seek validation for this season. The work happening now is largely unseen. If you require applause to stay obedient, this season will feel empty. But if you value alignment over recognition, it will feel deeply fulfilling. There is also a call to remain teachable. Growth can create confidence, but confidence must never harden into pride. Stay correctable. Stay receptive. Stay humble. Heaven flows most freely through those who remain soft in heart, even when they are strong in spirit. Michael says, "You are not finished learning, but you are finished resisting." That is the difference. As you move forward, do not measure progress by speed. Measure it by stability. If your peace remains intact, you are moving correctly. If clarity remains present, you are aligned. Chaos is not a sign of calling. Confusion is not proof of purpose. Heaven moves with order. And now, this moment must be sealed again. Not because heaven doubts you, but because marking moments anchors transformation. This is a chepid of trust, a declaration that you are stepping forward with awareness, not drifting forward by habit. Type "I accept the assignment" in the comments if this message confirms what has been stirring inside you. Blessing code 1188 is now activated. This message is not just for you. It is for the many who have not yet heard the warning that could save their alignment. When you support this mission through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you become a vessel that carries light into hidden places. I hear the Lord saying, "Those who sow in discernment will reap in stability," and your giving becomes a river that reaches souls at the edge of compromise. This is not a donation. It is an act of obedience that keeps the word flowing. If your spirit feels stirred right now, do not delay. The PayPal link is waiting in the description. Release your seed today and watch how heaven releases clarity, covering, and increase back into your life. My beloved one, Archangel Michael now invites you into a deeper layer of awareness, because obedience has positioned you where understanding can finally rest. What you sensed earlier as preparation now begins to feel like familiarity. This is how heaven confirms growth. What once felt heavy now feels natural. You are not forcing discipline anymore, you are embodying it. Michael says the stage is marked by inner steadiness. Circumstances around you may still fluctuate, but they no longer control your center. You are learning how to remain anchored while life moves. That anchoring is not emotional detachment. It is spiritual grounding. You know who you are becoming, and that clarity protects you from unnecessary turbulence. There is a subtle strengthening of your spiritual perception happening now. You will notice that you sense outcomes before they arrive. Not in detail, but in direction. You will know when something will not last. You will know when a conversation is leading nowhere. You will know when to disengage without needing justification. This discernment is not judgment. It is wisdom earned through alignment. Archangel Michael says, "You are beginning to see beyond moments into patterns." Patterns reveal truth faster than events. Anyone can be impressed by a moment, but those who are prepared look for consistency. Heaven is training you to value what endures, not what excites. There will be moments where others misunderstand your restraint. They may interpret your silence as distance or your boundaries as disinterest. Let them. You are no longer required to explain maturity to those who benefit from your impulsiveness. Growth often feels lonely at first, but it creates peace that companionship without alignment never could. Michael says, "You are learning to walk without dragging others behind you." This is not abandonment. It is responsibility. Everyone must respond to heaven for themselves. There is also a strengthening in how you process disappointment. Earlier seasons may have left you discouraged quickly when expectations were not met. Now, disappointment passes through you without settling. You acknowledge it, learn from it, and move forward without bitterness. That resilience is not emotional hardness. It is healed expectation. Heaven is also adjusting how you receive correction going forward. It will no longer come as sharp interruption. It will come as gentle redirection. A nudge, a pause, a subtle check in your spirit. This is because you have proven responsive. Correction no longer needs volume when humility is present. Archangel Michael says, "You hear me the first time now." It is growth. Beware, however, that this clarity will attract responsibility. People may seek your counsel more often. They may sense your steadiness and lean on it. Be wise with what you carry. You are not meant to fix everyone. You are meant to stay aligned. Offer wisdom without absorbing burdens that are not yours. There will be a test of priorities coming. Not dramatic, but practical. Something will compete for your time, your focus, or your energy. It will not be wrong. It will simply be misaligned. This is where discernment must override obligation. Choosing correctly here will protect your momentum. Michael says, just because you can does not mean you should. Capacity is not calling. Learn the difference. You are also being taught how to move without urgency. Earlier, urgency motivated you. Now, urgency exhausts you. That is because heaven is shifting you from survival mode into stewardship mode. Stewards move with intention, not panic. They understand timing. Pay attention to how peace functions now. Peace is no longer just relief. It is guidance. When peace withdraws, do not push through. Goes. When peace remains, proceed without fear. This sensitivity will save you from many unnecessary detours. Archangel Michael says you will soon recognize how much has changed simply by noticing what no longer triggers you. Old fears will feel distant. Old habits will feel irrelevant. Old temptations will feel hollow. This is not because you are stronger alone. It is because alignment has strengthened you. There is no need to rush visibility. What is forming in you will surface at the right time. Fruit appears naturally when roots are healthy. Focus on depth, not display. Heaven handles exposure. You are entering a phase where trust is mutual. You trust God more deeply, and God trusts you with greater subtlety. That trust is sacred. Protect it with humility and attentiveness. Archangel Michael remains present, not to correct, but to guard. You are not being watched suspiciously. You are being covered intentionally. Continue walking the way you are walking now. Not perfect, but aware. Not fearless, but faithful. Not rushed, but ready. Because what remains is not another warning. It is fulfillment, unfolding steadily, in alignment with every step you choose next. My dear one, Archangel Michael now speaks with measured authority because you are standing at a place where awareness must turn into stewardship. You have learned how to listen. You have learned how to pause. Now you are learning how to carry responsibility without pressure. This is where many stumble, not because they lack faith, but because they forget to stay attentive once peace arrives. Michael says this is a season where small neglects matter. Not sinful neglect, but spiritual negligence. Skipping moments of stillness. Ignoring gentle nudges. Letting familiarity replace reverence. None of these destroy alignment instantly, but over time they weaken sharpness. And heaven values sharpness in those it trusts. You are being invited to cultivate consistency, not intensity. Intensity can be emotional and temporary. Consistency is spiritual and enduring. The goal now is not to feel inspired every day, but to remain aligned every day. Alignment does not always feel powerful, but it is always effective. Archangel Michael says, you no longer need dramatic encounters to stay obedient. A dependency has been removed. You are learning how to walk steadily without constant reminders. This is maturity. There may be moments where you feel strangely normal, even after everything you have experienced. Do not mistake normal for stagnant. Stability often feels ordinary. Growth that lasts rarely announces itself. Heaven is not impressed by how loud your faith feels, but by how reliably it shows up in daily decisions. Pay attention to your inner dialogue. What you allow yourself to think privately matters more now than what you say publicly. Thoughts are becoming seeds quickly. Guard them. Redirect them gently. You do not need to fight every thought. You only need to refuse agreement with the wrong ones. Michael says agreement gives power. Awareness removes it. You are no longer obligated to wrestle with what you recognize as misaligned. You may also notice that your tolerance for spiritual noise is low. Excess opinions, constant negativity, endless debates, these will drain you faster than before. This is not weakness. This is refinement. You are being trained to preserve energy for what actually matters. Heaven is also teaching you how to engage without absorbing. You can listen without caring. You can care without rescuing. You can be present without being entangled. This balance protects your peace and preserves your calling. Now hear this clearly. There will be a subtle temptation to go quiet about your journey, not from humility, but from fear of being misunderstood. Do not silence what heaven has clarified. You do not need to explain everything, but you should not hide alignment either. Light does not shout, but it does not conceal itself. If this message has been strengthening you, acknowledge it openly. Engagement is not vanity, it is agreement. When you like this message, you are marking that it resonated. When you comment, you are sealing what you received. When you share it, you extend protection to someone else who may not even know they need it yet. And if you have not subscribed, understand that staying connected is not about loyalty to a channel. It is about remaining near timely instruction. These messages arrive when discernment is required. Being connected keeps you alert, not dependent. Archangel Michael says there are unseen watchers learning from your obedience. Your quiet discipline is influencing more than you realize. Do not underestimate the weight of unseen impact. You are also being reminded not to romanticize past struggles. Do not look back at chaos and call it passion. Peace may feel less dramatic, but it produces clarity. Chaos never did. What you have now is worth protecting. Here is one more thing you must remember in this season. Momentum is maintained by humility. The moment you assume you have arrived, you begin to drift. Stay teachable. Stay receptive. Stay grounded. Growth does not end because alignment improves. Michael says, the greatest protection is continued listening. Never graduate from awareness. And before this moment passes, stay with me just a little longer, because what comes next will reveal how heaven rewards quiet obedience, not publicly at first, but profoundly. What you are about to hear will explain why your patience has not been wasted and why the season is about to shift in a way you did not expect. Hold on. This is where it gets deeper. My beloved one, Archangel Michael now speaks with a calm authority that signals transition. What you have been building inwardly is about to meet external movement. Not sudden chaos, not overwhelming change, but a quiet shift where things begin to respond differently to you. This is how heaven confirms readiness, not by noise, but by alignment producing motion. Michael says this season will feel unfamiliar in a subtle way. You will notice that situations no longer pull you into confusion as easily. Problems that once consumed your thoughts now resolve more quickly. Decisions that once required wrestling now come with clarity. This is not because life has become easier, but because you have become steadier. There is a release happening around you, a loosening of resistance. Doors that felt heavy are beginning to open without force. Conversations are aligning naturally. Timing is improving. This is not coincidence. It is the reward of sustained obedience. Heaven responds to consistency. Archangel Michael says, "You did not rush me, and I will not rush you." What is unfolding now is paced perfectly for your growth. If it had come earlier, it would have overwhelmed you. If it came later, it would have frustrated you. This timing is intentional. You may feel a renewed sense of responsibility, not burdened but purposeful. Tasks feel meaningful again. Daily routines feel connected to something larger. This is because alignment restores meaning to ordinary things. When purpose is clear, even simple actions carry weight. There will be an invitation soon that confirms this shift. It will not be dramatic. It may even feel understated, but it will require trust. This is not the kind of invitation that excites the ego. It is the kind that strengthens destiny. Accept it without overthinking. You will recognize it by the peace it carries, even if it stretches you. Archangel Michael says this is where many hesitate, not out of fear, but out of disbelief. You may question whether you are truly ready. That question itself is proof of humility. Readiness is not the absence of doubt. It is the willingness to move despite it. Be careful not to disqualify yourself by looking at who you used to be. That version of you has already been addressed, corrected, and refined. You are not stepping forward as the same person. Alignment has changed you more than you realize. There will also be a shift in how others respond to you. Some will show increased respect without explanation. Others may feel unsettled without knowing why. Alignment carries authority quietly. You do not need to assert it. It speaks for itself. Michael says, "Let fruit answer questions words never should." Do not try to convince. Do not try to defend. Let consistency speak. You are also being reminded to guard gratitude. Gratitude keeps alignment soft. Without it, success can harden into entitlement. Pause often to acknowledge how far you have come. Not with pride, but with awareness. You survived seasons that could have hardened you. Instead, you softened and learned. Heaven honors that. There may still be moments of uncertainty. Do not fear them. Uncertainty does not mean misalignment. It means growth is ongoing. The difference now is that uncertainty no longer paralyzes you. It simply slows you long enough to listen. Archangel Michael says, listening has become your strength. You no longer rush to respond. You wait to discern. This patience is not passive, it is powerful. As you move forward, remember this principle: what you protect will grow. Protect your peace. Protect your discernment. Protect your boundaries. Do not reopen doors that were closed for your safety just because you feel stronger now. Strength does not remove the need for wisdom. There is also a deepening of trust between you and heaven. You will sense guidance without needing constant reassurance. Prompts will come as quiet knowing rather than urgent instruction. This is partnership at a higher level. Do not become nostalgic for the intensity of earlier seasons. Intensity was necessary then. Stability is necessary now. Each season serves a purpose. You are not losing fire. You are learning how to carry it without burning yourself. Archangel Michael says you are approaching a completion point. Not the end of the journey, but the end of this refining cycle. What comes next will build upon what hath been stabilized, not correct what was broken. Remain attentive. Remain humble. Remain obedient. Because the final release that is coming will not be about warning or preparation. It will be about confirmation. My beloved child, Archangel Michael now speaks with finality and grace. because this cycle is reaching its appointed conclusion. What began as warning has become wisdom. What began as correction has matured into confirmation. You are no longer standing in uncertainty. You are standing in knowing. And heaven always seals what it completes. Michael says this is the moment where alignment turns into authority. Not authority over others, but authority over yourself. That is the highest form. You are no longer easily pulled, easily right, or easily shaken. The mistake that once demanded heaven's intervention has now become the very lesson that fortified you. Nothing was wasted. There is a deep peace settling over this message now, and that peace is intentional. It is the sign that heaven is satisfied with your response. You listened. You stayed. You adjusted. And because of that, what could have become a repeated cycle has ended here. Archangel Michael says, this chapter closes without penalty. That is rare. Many only learn through loss. You learn through awareness. And that is why restoration came without delay. From this point forward, your discernment will protect you before danger approaches. What once required loud warning will now be handled through quiet knowing. You will sense when to step back, when to move forward, and when to wait. That sensitivity is your safeguard. Do not underestimate what has changed. You may still feel human. You may still feel imperfect. But your internal alignment has shifted permanently. You cannot unknow what you now know. You cannot return to ignorance. And that is a gift. There will be moments in the future when you remember this message. Not with fear, but with gratitude. Gratitude that heaven interrupted. Gratitude that you listened. Gratitude that correction came wrapped in protection. Michael says there is a blessing resting on those who respond early to instruction. Early responders avoid heavy consequences. Early responders move forward lighter. That is your portion now. As you step into what comes next, do not rush to explain your growth. Live it. Let others notice the calm in your decisions, the clarity in your words, the steadiness in your presence. Alignment speaks louder than testimony. You are also being reminded that obedience is not a one-time act. It is a posture. Stay soft toward heaven. Stay alert in spirit. Stay humble in confidence. These are the guards that keep authority intact. Archangel Michael is no longer standing in front of you to block danger. He is standing behind you now, covering what you cannot see. That is the reward of alignment. And now, this moment must be sealed one final time. Type "I walk in alignment" in the comments if you receive this completion and step forward with clarity. Blessing code 1440 is now released over your life. This message reached you because heaven needed a willing vessel to carry it forward. As Archangel Michael completes this assignment, others are still waiting for the very warning that preserved you. When you give through super thanks, membership, or PayPal, you are sowing into souls who are standing where you once stood. I hear the Lord saying, as you release provision, I release protection, and your seed becomes oil that keeps this light burning. This is not support. This is obedience in motion. The PayPal link is in the description, waiting for those who understand divine timing. Act now, release your seed, and may heaven multiply your alignment, your covering, and your peace in ways only God can.